Somali's best defense. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about the legal defense of Johnny Somali, going through some of the defenses that we've heard, some of the information out there. We've heard from Ramsays' team, stuff that's come out in the last 24, 48 hours, as well as comments and things from Ramsay, quote unquote, defenders or fans out there that have brought up legal points in various places in the internet, as well as some of my own thoughts on the defense, as well as the thoughts of those that are on the Somali conviction team, some of the folks that I talk with when we go over possible defenses for Johnny, now that we move into this next phase of the trial. Of course, I am Andrew Esquire, American attorney living over here in Asia, and this is a legal mindset where we teach you to be your own judge. Well, we're just going to get right into it on this Fast Facts series. I hope you've been enjoying this. If you do enjoy the Fast Facts, make sure to like this video and also leave a comment that you still appreciate these videos. Also, I want to know, will you object if some of them are a little bit longer? I am trying to keep them around 10 to 20 minutes, but I've had some people say I should go a little bit longer, maybe 25 or 30 minutes. What would you think about one of these series if it goes maybe 30 minutes? Is that too long? Is that no longer Fast Facts? Just let me know in the comments below. But let's get started right here with the defense. And this is, of course, a thing I brought up today. As a prelude, a kind of funny thing to bring up. Today, Ramsay and Hank in the Discord made some deep fakes of Ramsay and Hank kissing. They did try to send me that in an email. Of course, the plan was probably to get me to show those on stream, so I'd be guilty of a crime. Of course, I am not that dumb. I am a simple Florida lawyer, but not that dumb, Ramsay. So that's not going to happen. Also, there was some false information about Gino being extradited to Korea. That is definitely not happening. Costs millions of dollars, and for minor offenses, people do not get extradited. So, yeah, that's not happening in regards to Gino. There's a lot of false information out there, guys, so please stay tuned to the channel for the proper information. All right. The first disclaimer, and this is something I give because I'm talking about a legal defense. First of all, this is not actual legal advice. Clearly, I am not a Korean lawyer. I'm an American lawyer, not a Korean lawyer. I talk to Korean lawyers, but once again, I am not one myself, so I cannot render advice to Ramsay. Ramsay Khalid Ismail has a Korean lawyer, and therefore he should listen to his Korean lawyer. He should trust his Korean lawyer and listen to his counsel and, listen to him pretty carefully. On today's agenda, we're going to take an educational and entertaining look at the defenses brought up by Ramsay, Hank, and Ramsay's few fans. Also, we're going to look at some possible defenses that I have thought about and others have thought about. We are going to ignore the ad hominem and the but they're bad too. By the way, the majority of what is out there on the internet, the majority of Ramsay and Hank and what they say in their defense is that it is just personal attacks on other people and saying, but they're a bad person too. But once again, these arguments consistently fail, not just when Ramsay makes them, but anybody makes them in a legal context, because that does not get you out of a crime. Somebody else can be a mean, bad, horrible person. That doesn't make them innocent in court. You cannot turn to the judge and say, but they did this bad thing or they are a horrible meanie too. That does not get you out of legal punishment and legal consequences. So I am going to ignore those, but just so you know, that remains the same. Due process. I want to talk about that. So what does due process mean? Due process means fairness in accordance with established rules and principles. I love due process. One of the things that makes me love being a lawyer and really love the law is due process. But be careful what due process is and isn't. Due process is fairness, but it's not fairness alone, because what fairness is relatively subjective. What is fair to one person might actually be cruel to another person. So that is a very subjective thing when you use the word fairness alone. When you tag on established rules and principles, that's where we have objectivity. We say it is fair, and therefore we have created under our culture, under our system, under our tradition, these rules and procedures. So you are following objective boundaries. You're following objective guidelines. There may be some wiggle room within those guidelines, but you have something to follow, which is due process. And I am a big fan of due process, and I do think every criminal defendant merits due process. Here's the thing. different countries understand due process differently. And what is due process in Korea is different than America or Canada or the Philippines or Taiwan or Thailand or China or Russia or Iran, right? There's plenty of places that have a very different understanding. And if you have a problem with another country's understanding of due process, I would recommend you do not visit. You certainly don't live there, but definitely don't visit. If you don't think it is fair and you don't think the rules and processes are fair in a country, do not go. Don't try to go to that country and complain or try to change it, especially as a non-citizen. It's not going to work. It's annoying and everybody hates it. Don't do it. Follow their customs, follow their procedures when you're there, and then when you get home, when you get back to your own country, you can embrace your own version of due process. And once again, no country is necessarily the best, and no country is necessarily right or wrong. We've talked about the Vitali case, and this is obviously another nuisance streamer here. This is a moment at which he was trying to speak up at a press conference, but he had no right to speak. There was no, right for him to make a statement at a press conference. So Ramula over there, who's got his hand up, is like, hey, be quiet. Like, you don't get to speak now. You don't get to talk. That's not your right. Your right is, the rights that will be held under Filipino law, and you'll get your day in court. That may be 2 to 3 years from now, but hey, that's what you get when you come to the Philippines. This is a due process that normal Filipinos and Filipinas have. So if you go to a country and you commit crimes, you do need to expect to follow their version of due process. So let's continue here, and I want to give an update on this chart. Now, really, I want to update on the one thing I am bringing some attention to, and that is obstruction of business count 3. So I have changed this one. I now have it in orange as not guilty. Let me explain real quick. So upon further review of even more articles in the Korean media, we have about a 60-40 split, where 60% of the articles say he pled guilty to the third obstruction charge, that is Lotte World, related to Lotte World. But there's 40% that say he pled not guilty. And Ramsay himself says he pled not guilty. So out of fairness, and let nobody say I am not fair when it comes to applying the procedure and the process, let's give the benefit of the doubt and let's put not guilty, because presumptively let's even think that Ramsay gets his way and it's not guilty, and they don't hold him to a guilty plea. Like, they don't force him to stick with a guilty plea even though he wanted to plead not guilty. Let's presume that he is going to plead not guilty for the time being. So today, we are going to focus on the charges that he has pled not guilty to. He has no defense when he's pled guilty. He is guilty of all the things he's pled guilty for, which is 2 counts of obstruction, 1 for the 7-Eleven, 1 for disrupting the bus, for making monkey noises. Once again, probably the first time in Korean legal history that you have monkey noises and twerking as well. In the legal record. You've also got him pleading guilty to the Minor Crimes Act 1 and 2. So those are in the book. So there's no really defense for that. So we're not going to focus on that. So today we're going to focus on the deep fakes and also the Lotte World charge, assuming that he actually pled not guilty to that, and he's going to get a chance to fight back against that charge. So let's move forward with that presumption. Now, with Lotte World, Ramsay's argument regarding Lotte World seems to, and once again, I don't watch all of his streams. I kind of get this second and third hand sometimes, but basically the coherent information that I've gotten and gathered from the madness of the Cabbage Boy is that he thinks that it's text to speech, and he's centering around the fact that he does not explicitly control text to speech, that he cannot be the one, he cannot control what comes out of that. That seems to be his defense. That was his defense for the child sexual harassment charge, which was dropped due to insufficient evidence at that point. Of course, we're going to try to get that thing revived. But that might be more relevant for that charge that was dropped, the child sexual harassment charge. But this isn't a child sexual harassment charge. This is an obstruction of business charge, which is quite different. We're going to get into that. Ramsay also argues that because he can't control it, he can't be held culpable, right? So I can't be held responsible, I can't be held culpable because I can't control it. Okay, let's look at the actual statute here, which will quickly prove this wrong and kind of defeat this defense, this really non-defense defense. First of all, what is obstruction of business? Well, this is from the Korean statutes. A person who interferes with business of another by the method of Article 3132, and we have those methods below, or by the threat of force, shall be punished by imprisonment for not more than 5 years or by a fine not exceeding 15 million won. So, interfering with the business by a method stated below or by threat of force. So what methods are there? There's threat of force, of course, we talk about that. And that can be intimidation as well. So it doesn't have to be violence. It can say like, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or it can just be intimidating somebody in a broader sense. It can be spreading false information. It can also be just disrupting normal operations, blocking access, or otherwise interfering with the smooth functioning of a business. And that's where Ramsay is dead to rights. He interrupted the normal, smooth operations, the smooth functioning of Lotte World when that ride closed. Beyond that, he had security that had to come down there. That is not normal. When security has to be called, that is not the normal operation of the business. You have now done something disruptive and abnormal to the business. So per se, he's done that regardless of whether or not the text to speech was controlled. Just the fact that he's there and was causing a disruption and that was attributable to him, that is enough. That is enough. It does not need to be more than that. The operations were interrupted. Boom. Now, Lotte World was clearly interrupted. We saw that in a video. We also see the security show up and Ramsay flee while he's yelling that he is bipolar or autistic, which once again, he is not. Also, whether or not he can control the TTS is irrelevant indeed. And the last part is that the courts don't like split pleas. They don't like when you plea part guilty and part not guilty. And this is especially true here with obstruction because he's pled guilty to 2 obstruction charges, including one of which the count number 2, where this is based on him playing music and being disruptive and using text-to-speech. So he's already admitted in another count. He's already pled guilty, which says, yes, I acknowledge that I am guilty. And yes, I acknowledge it is disruptive to play text-to-speech and music and make monkey noises on the train, right? That's all disruptive. So you've already acknowledged that text-to-speech is obstruction. You've literally admitted to that. So it is kind of mind-boggling why you would try to say you're not guilty of making a disruption under the same circumstances, just in a different location. So it's not okay on a bus, but it's okay in Lotte World. You're going to have to make that argument to a judge. I don't think the judge is going to buy that. Once again, that's my 2 cents on that one. All right, now the deepfakes. So Hank Ramsay and Ramsay's lawyer all deeply dislike the deepfake law. They don't like the law itself. They think it's unfair. And we'll get to that because there might be a point there. There are multiple deepfakes in evidence, and there will be a victim testimony as to the deepfake on August 13th. Ramsay's defense for the deepfakes largely follows one of 4 bullet points. Number 1, it wasn't me, what I call the shaggy defense. It wasn't me. That really is irrelevant because the way that the statute is framed, as long as you broadcast it and show it, it doesn't matter who made it. And he did do that. So because he broadcast it, it doesn't matter who made the deepfake. In fact, that's how they tried to get me this morning, was by getting me to show a deepfake, which would make me violate the Korean law, even though I'm not in Korea, by the way. I'm in Thailand right now. It's kind of a low IQ move, but neither here nor there. They also showed it on stream that Ramsay's defense is that other people like Bong Bong and Youngman, another Korean streamer, showed it on stream. Once again, them being bad doesn't change your culpability, your responsibility. It isn't that bad. Well, not in the eyes of the Korean court, because once again, sexual deepfakes include kissing in Korea because it implies relationship, which implies sex. That is, and it's extraordinarily embarrassing to be called someone's girlfriend when you are not. Lastly, that the Bong Bong shaming, Bong Bong is bad. Once again, it circles back to the argument, she's bad, she did it, let me off the hook. It really doesn't work, guys. It really does not work. That is not a successful argument. And the court is really not going to buy that. Okay. So what's one of the best defenses? What do I think might actually be decent? constitutionality. I actually think there is a chance that if they challenged it, maybe they could defeat it. It's not a 0% chance. You always, when you challenge the constitutionality of something, have a shot. It may be 0.001%, but there's a possibility. And if they feel strongly about that, well, then maybe they should challenge that if they think it violates Korea's version of freedom of speech. Once again, countries conceptualize freedom of speech different, and it is very different in Korea than the United States. If they want to go to try to challenge that, they could try, and laws are often, in all countries, right? There's constitutional courts, and sometimes the courts will say, hey, this law is overly broad. It needs to be more narrow. And sometimes they will narrow down the scope or something else. Here's the problem with this. Here's the big problem and why Ramsey will not do it and will not be successful. First, you need a guilty plea or verdict. So, Ramsey would be better served pleading guilty right now to everything and, throwing himself at the mercy of the court. But beyond that, the constitutional appeal requires it to be over. So he's got to go through the whole trial and then try to do that. Next, it's very expensive. Lawyers are not working for free. This is not going to be one a lawyer would do pro bono. I'll guarantee you that. This could take a long time. It could be years before this is brought up. And while he's doing that, he is behind bars. He is in prison during the appeal. So he's got to sit and wait during the appeal. There's zero guarantee of victory. It's a chance. I'm saying there's a chance. Once again, the best defense doesn't mean it's a good defense. It doesn't mean it's a winning defense. It doesn't mean it's even a realistic defense, right? But you got to be honest that if you really disagree with the law, challenging the constitutionality is typically a way that you can try to get it overturned. Another option, another good defense for Ramsey, and one I completely would endorse, is pleading guilty to everything. At this point, it seems the judge may be open, especially since if he muddled up the pleas, you could go back and say, you know what, Your Honor, I changed my mind. I plead guilty to everything. I think that could save a lot of time. That could move things forward. It could allow him to challenge constitutionality if he really wanted to try to do that. If he thinks he can lawyer that one up, and it puts him at the mercy of the court, and it does not piss off the judge, doesn't waste the prosecutor's time. It gets things moving. So I think a guilty plea might be the right move, but the right defense. But do I think Ramsey's going to do that? I think he has a real thought, which is why I had the thumbnail for my live video as the O.J. Simpson trial. But I think he really views himself as like an O.J. I think he thinks he can argue this one, and it's just not going to work. Also, I want to debunk some fan defenses. One of the comments is, what Ramsey did isn't that bad. Obviously, the Korean court doesn't think so. And same thing for you can't be punished for these things. Obviously, the prosecutor has brought 7 criminal charges. So you can be, and people are put in jail for this. People were put in jail for several years for obstruction, and now you've got deepfakes. So these are things you can see real jail time for. And then the rest of the stuff is just personal attacks against me, other YouTubers like ETH, etc., against social media figures, Dalgoon, Korean streamers, Bong Bong, the judge, Korea itself, the prosecutors, law enforcement, police. He rages in personal attacks. But once again, these do not make you innocent. These do not take those not guilties and prove your case. You can go in there and say all the nasty stuff you want about me. You're still guilty, right? So that's what I got for today, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you have any defenses that Ramsey might use? And do not say insanity plea, or I'm going to ban you immediately from the channel.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?